Hi, everyone. So we are just making sure that we are streaming live on Facebook, and then we're going to get started with our event in just a moment. So bear with us for a second while we make sure that we're live.
All right. I believe we are live. Got it. All right. For anybody that's joining us right now, if you could give us a like, just so we know that it is working, that would be great. Okay. All right. All right. So, hi, everybody. My name is Van Tratt. I am the current Conservancy Associate for Teaneck Creek Conservancy. And with me today, I have the previous Conservancy Associate, Allie, and I have our Meet Our Eco artist, Robert Adzema, who is a professional plein-air landscape watercolor painter and a sculptor who has made sundials an essential part of his sculptural works. So, Robert, can you tell us a little bit about, your educational background?
Yeah, sure. I went to a terrific high school. First of all, I wanted to tell your listeners and you that I went to Dumont High School and had a terrific art teacher named John Pappas. And John Pappas used to do watercolors in the classroom of his own work. And I stayed after class and watched him a lot. And I learned, it's amazing what you learn for someone who, if you watch their hands do something and they're putting a lot of love into it, you really learn a lot. And so I watched him work in class, and that's where I learned to do watercolors. And then from there, he encouraged me to go to art school, and I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn and found that I was much more interested in three-dimensional design. I was interested in more sculptural things after there's a foundation year, and so you have to make a choice after that. And I sort of decided to go into industrial design, which at the time was more, it was more of a practical application of art, where you learn how to make furniture or design cars or interiors. It's an amazing school. And for some reason, I was more interested in the practicality of that kind of education than sculpture, which at the time was much more, when I went to school, there was much more abstract expressionism going on. So I studied industrial design and got a degree in industrial design. And then it happened that at night, I went into the art department at night and befriended a teacher sculptor who wanted to learn. I wanted to learn sculpture and he wanted to learn design. And so he let me on at the class at night, his class at night. And I was studying figurative sculpture, working from the model.
Oh, wow. And
then from there, I went off to graduate school and studied figurative sculpture at Indiana University in Bloomington, and got a master's degree in sculpture from Bloomington, Indiana. So that's my formal education.
I love that. And I love that it kind of took you on a journey in some ways too. Like you ended up in a different place ultimately than where you initially started, but I think that's all part of the process though, right?
Well, yeah, if you're open to what moves you rather than listening to, first of all, I had parents who sort of didn't force me to become a doctor or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were supportive and gave me the courage to pursue what I wanted. And it's I think for an artist, it's great to have that kind of support of someone around you who's, giving you helping you to grow that way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's so important too. You really get to like explore what you're interested in. One of the things I wanted to ask you actually, I know when Van was doing your introduction, she mentioned that you're a plein air, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, pardon me if I'm not, plein air landscape watercolor painter. Can you tell me a little bit about what the term plein air means?
Well, it's a French term, and it means in the open air. So plein air is when a painter, it could be an oil painter, it could be anybody who's working outside, is working from the landscapes, but not in the, is working from nature outside in the wind, the rain, the sun, the changing light. And so it's not studio work.
Okay. Mhm.
So all my paintings are done, majority of my watercolors are done un plein air, as they say. So it's all painted outside.
Oh, wow. I can imagine that might create some challenges too, though, if you have, because then you're dealing with all the interference like rain or wind or anything like that.
Or people, or but it's
Yeah.
something, you know, it's actually what's exciting about it is it's what makes it exciting. It sort of keeps you on your toes, and the light's constantly changing, and it's really exciting, and to, you know, to be if you know, being involved in the conservancy there, it's like if you're out in nature, and it's wonderful. I mean, there's an excitement to being in nature and working there that keeps the work fresh and exciting. And, you know, sometimes a person will walk into the painting and you'll draw it or paint it in, or a boat will come down the creek or whatever, and or a muskrat will appear and disappear, and you put the muskrat's ripples in where he was. I mean, so it creates, you know, working in plein air is not only challenging, but it's exciting.
Yeah, I love that. It feels like you're in a live place instead of somewhere that's stagnant almost.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a lot of artists just like the control. They work both ways. They work out and they sketch at nature in plein air, and then they go to the studio where they have more control of their material. But watercolor is a medium which is very immediate, and it dries quickly, and you can't go over things. It forces you to be very decisive, and and it lends itself to painting outside, because if there's it's like cloud, you know, there's certain weather effects, and if they come up suddenly, you can capture the moment.
Well, that is absolutely wonderful. So it's pretty obvious that you're very inspired by the natural environment that's around you. Is there anything else that inspires your watercolor paintings besides the natural environment?
Well, the specific location has a lot to do with it. In other words, like I moved from the Hudson River area in Rockland County and the Piermont Marsh, and moved to the country, more rural country in Connecticut, and that has, you know, there's a change of architecture. There's barns instead of the creek, and you know, like covered bridges and more bigger rivers and mountains, and so the light's very different. The river, the light along the river in Piermont with the marsh, I mean, was much much brighter, and in a much more open environment in a lot of ways. And so artists are always talking about light. And so does that answer your question a little bit in terms of?
Yeah. I definitely agree. The geographical, area definitely depends on, your inspiration from. So I definitely understand. Can you tell us a little bit more about, specific geographical places you've been? I know you mentioned, Piermont, maybe a little bit more.
I started before I moved to Rockland County in Piermont. I lived in New York City on the lower near Canal Street on the west side on the West Side Highway.
That's definitely got different scenery.
So it was much more. I did a lot of wonderful watercolors. Do I have any of those pictures there? I don't think I have any of those pictures that you could cue, Van. Anyway, I did a lot of pictures of the Holland Tunnel exhaust vent from my rooftop, and those were an exciting series. So I went from a very from painting buildings and to painting the buildings, but the river, and a lot of sky paintings of the sky over. I had a view over the Newark Airport. There was these amazing colors coming from the exhaust vents of the jets and stuff. It was, I mean, the whole sunsets over the Newark were amazing. So, and then to move to Rockland County and painting the marshes was like 180-degree change from geometric to more organic subject matter.
Yeah, that's a humongous change too. No, absolutely. So do you have any favorite watercolor paintings that you've created?
I think I sent one to Van that I like. That's the Piermont Winter Marsh. You have that that you could show?
Yeah, she can pull it up for us.
Absolutely. Right, I am gonna screen share it in just 1 second.
Yeah, that's perfect. That way everyone can see it too.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And I think I put that in because it's something I love, but I also think that people who know your environment there, the creek, and live streamed. I got a picture of the live streamed. There's something covering the.
Can you see it now?
No, I covered by a sign that says that this meeting is being live streamed.
Oh, that's okay. It shouldn't show up when everyone else is streaming. It should just show on our side, I think. So that's okay.
So you can see it, but I can't. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, it's an exciting painting because it really, there's, I don't know if you could see it, but there's a storm coming or leaving. I can't remember which, and then the color of the water and the mud flat and the Phragmites. It's just, I think it's just a rich painting in terms of variety and color and mood.
Yeah, and the water looks so reflective too. It does look like a mirror surface, especially as it approaches like the edge of the shore. Yeah, I love that. I know we were talking about Phragmites before. We were discussing, we also have Phragmites at Teaneck Creek.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Are they freshwater?
I actually looked it up after we discussed it. So they survive best in freshwater.
Oh, no kidding. That's interesting.
Yeah, they can tolerate like moderate salinity. So sometimes they end up in brackish water, but overall the salt's not like perfect.
Wow, that's great.
Right.
Yeah, this is great. So do you usually just do your drawings based on, or your paintings rather, based on what inspires you? Do you ever do commissions or anything like that?
I don't generally do commissions for paintings unless it's a house, somebody wants a painting of a house or,
Mhm.
so it's mostly, I paint things that interest me pretty much in terms of, a view, the light of a particular time of day. Mostly I paint in the morning and the evening when the light is, it's called the golden hour.
Mhm.
When the sun is lower in the sky, most of the colors um, much more saturated, and that's a lot of painters paint that way because it's as they say, it's the golden hour when everything is rich in terms of color.
And that happens usually at the end of the day too, like 5
Yeah,
p.m.
yeah, in the morning and in the evening when the sun's not directly overhead. Yeah.
Actually,
Now,
that ties
I-
into. Mhm. Go on, sorry.
I can't see you now because I have this meeting is being live streamed, images stuck on my screen. I can no longer see.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I don't know why it's doing that on your side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
yeah, anyway. If I press, I got it, maybe will it go away?
Oh yeah, try that. That might work.
Ah,
Okay,
voila.
perfect. Good, good. Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't doing it on our side. I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Actually, though, because we were talking about light, I feel like that ties in really, really well with the other area of art that you're always working on, which is sundials.
Right.
And would you actually be able to tell us maybe a little bit about, I guess in some ways, how sundials work with light and everything like that?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm. And what are sundials for those who may not know exactly as well?
Well, sundials are really the first scientific instruments that were probably invented by man because they were invented and produced by the Egyptians. And what they are is a way of telling time from the sun with the sunlight casting a shadow on something which is called, it could be anything. It could be a triangle or a bar, and the shadow from produced from the sun on is cast on a dial plate or a calibrated form, which can tell you the time. So it's a method of telling the time from the sun. So that's
Amazing.
that's what a sundial is. The thing that casts a shadow, in other words, the form which casts a shadow is called the gnomon, which is a Greek word for one who knows.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, I
And-
never heard of that.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by this simple, beautiful, elemental phenomena that you can tell the time from a shadow, and have always been interested in this, as even from a child. As a child, I was fascinated by as a child. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I had what's called Venetian blinds in my room. Venetian blinds are basically horizontal slats that you can adjust the angle of the slats and let more or less light in the room. And as a child, I remember very distinctly seeing sunlight come through these slats, and the sunbeams became very physical because I just looked this up today. There's something called, I wrote it down, sun motes, M-O-T-E-S, motes. And basically, a sun mote is really dust in the air, which when the light comes through the window or whatever in a room, the light, the dust actually captures the lights and makes light, rather than just being light or dark, it makes it physical. You see beams of light coming through. And so I was like, as a child, I went crazy over seeing these beams, these beams of light coming through into my room, and as a child, and I've been sort of fascinated ever since. And I remember, as a child, we moved from Brooklyn to Dumont, New Jersey, and my parents were driving in their car, and I was in the back seat with my brothers, and it, it was like a November winter's night, and they're looking for this last house and trying to, like, it was probably a weekend. My father was off, and it's cold, and the street lights are on, and it's dark, and I'm sitting in the back of the car, and the car is slowly going down these back streets looking for this house, and I'm just stunningly fascinated by the shadows of the street lights casting these shadows up over the front seat of the car, down over the back seat, and then out the back window. And these moving shadows were like, oh my God, what's going on here? And just so beautiful. And so I've always been in love with light and shadow, and I think most artists are. But anyway, that's where I started, and that's sort of the beginning of my interest with sundials, I think, pretty much.
That's incredible. I think a lot of people during this time and age, when we ever need to look at the time, we just look at a clock with just numbers.
It's
But
digital. Yeah,
it's all digital.
Yeah. And that's one of the beauties of sundials, is that and it's one of the things that fascinates me most about sundial. I think one of the reasons why I'm interested is that we're sort of, what did I do? I just somehow, I did something here that, there you are, okay. I thought I did something that I lost you. Anyway, so, I think so much of we lose track of what I don't remember what I was going to say. I was as an adult, I was always sort of in a hurry, sort of rushing around, and sundials sort of force you to they move in this steady way that's it's cyclical. It's not digital where your watch your time is escaping, and it's like an old-fashioned clock face where the hands move around in a circle for the 12 hours, and so sundials, moving as a result of the turning Earth. The Earth is turning, and the sunlight is causing the shadows to get longer, because what happens at night, shadows get really long, right? And so there's this kind of rhythm and the kind of naturalness in the way time is told on a sundial that is not only magical, for me, it's soothing, and it's calming, and it's not hurried, and it's a very humane way of telling time and being in the moment.
Yeah, I like how tangible it is too, because it's something physical that's happening, like as the earth is moving and the sun is moving and everything like that. Because sometimes time in certain ways doesn't feel real, especially when we do daylight savings and we just change what time it is,
Right.
So this is something just like that everything is experiencing, not just humans, So I do like that.
Yes.
I wanted to ask also, so how do you cast your sundials? You usually do like a bronze or a steel or a stone, is that correct?
Well, it really depends on what I make them out of.
Mhm.
Certain things I'm able to work if they're in wood, or I make a lot of in paper, making models in paper and so forth. But if they're more permanent, I've done them in concrete, which I've done myself. But a lot of times they're done in bronze or aluminum, or if they're in steel, I can make them. But if they're in metals like bronze or aluminum, they require special welding and depending on the size, certain machining. And I can't do that. So I have to design them, and then I have to send them to people who can do that. And I often do the finishing work myself, but I don't do the actual fabrication. I have other artists who actually do that for me. I have,
I think that ties
artists,
into.
there are artisans who actually, who do my work that way. And so, does that answer?
It does. It actually even ties into our next question. We were going to ask if you ever work with other artists or mathematicians to get exact dimensions and measurements for these.
Well, I do, and I work with a I've been working with a family. They live in Hawthorne, New Jersey, called Artistic Metals. I'll give them a plug. There are a group of brothers, and their father owned the business before. They're Italian craftsmen who do amazingly beautiful metalworking. And so I will bring a drawing, and they will fabricate it. And then sometimes what I will do is, if in terms of I mean, some of the I make sundials which are garden size, and I also make sundials which I've made for libraries or plazas and so forth. Well, excuse me, I'm just gonna drink of water. Hold on. So sometimes some of the designs are large, and I will. In fact, I did a recent design for an observatory at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, and I figured I did all the math and stuff myself to figure out where all the lines go, and I hired the head of the North American Sundial Society to check my numbers. And he would run a computer program, and he would check to see that, because I don't want to build something and not have it work. You know, you build something which is 6 foot square and large on top at a planetarium or an observatory, and if it doesn't work, your reputation goes down the toilet. So I sometimes work with other mathematicians and stuff to check my numbers. And then at some point I did work with other artists in I guess in the 80s. I worked with a number of artists who were doing solar celebrations at the equinox. There was a group in Brooklyn, New York, who we did these sun celebrations on the day of the equinox, and they had dancers. It was a day of I made a large sundial in a field, and they would trace the shadows, and there would be people decorating the shadow lines. Oh, wow. And there was dancers and musicians, and it was a total solar celebration of the environment and the sun. And so I've done a few of those projects over the years. I think we did 2 or 3 of those events over at that time.
Great. And as you were mentioning some of the sundials that you've created. Do you want to showcase, you know, any of the sundials that you've created before?
You want to look, see if you want to send a few pictures. I can show you, put a couple pictures up. Let me see
Sure.
what you have. Why don't you do the first, do you have something here called Country Garden article? It's the last one, I think, for the first set I send you.
The PDF, right?
I don't know.
Let's see. I have Country Gardens article 2017.
Yeah, that's good. If you can show that.
Okay. Okay. Try to share screen this.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, so that shows one of my sundials where I'm actually using sunlight going through the numbers and testing at the time on a dial plate. And you can do Arc of the Sun or the Crack of Dawn. You can do the Crack of Dawn, which is the second one.
Crack of Dawn?
Yep.
Okay. Crack of Dawn.
Or the Arc of the Sun.
Okay. I believe I have Crack of Dawn back view. And I
Alright.
can see the part of the sun shining through it.
Right.
Yeah, that's so neat.
And
Do you have the front view of it too, Van?
I don't have a picture of the front.
Oh,
view.
okay. No, I was just wondering.
You can put the Arc of the Sun. These are sort of garden varieties rather than more public sculpture.
And how big did you say these are in person?
These are like 18 inches. These are like good for like a garden.
Mhm.
They stand about a little higher than waist height and about 18 inches long. And Van, do you have the other the Arc of the Sun?
Arc of the sundial?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Let's see. Okay.
So that shows it's on the base in the garden.
That's so cool too. And you have the numbers like integrated into the metal there too.
Right.
I've never really seen any sundials that look like this. They're very unique.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
There's a Suffren sundial. Is more of a something I did for the public library in Suffern, New York.
Mhm.
Oh, I think I've been to this Suffern library before too.
Oh, you
Let's
recognize it
see.
then?
Oh, wow. This is beautiful, especially in the garden.
Right.
I can't see it. It's loading. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's humongous too.
It's big, yeah. And there's another one actually, probably closer. Well, I don't know. It's in Jersey City on the waterfront. That's larger than that. But what's unique about that particular design is that there's a solar calendar in the middle of it, so that you could tell the day of the year from the sun.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How does that work exactly? Like, yeah.
Well, if there's if you have the right geometry set up, if you have a circle, an aperture like a hole in a plate, you can actually pinpoint a light beam on a plate below it. You see the curved part? You can, I don't know, can you zoom in on that at all? I don't know if you could.
Yeah, I think she can. There's a little plus button right at the top, Van. You click slightly to the right.
Let's see. I have some screening share things in my way, so
Oh, okay.
I'm not
Okay.
too sure if I can.
All right, it's
It
not
should,
important.
oh, that's
Anyway,
okay. There it is.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you get closer? Look at that. Wow,
Yeah, there we go. That's nice and close.
yeah, that's good. So there you go. So hold it there. So there's the, and on the line which tells the hour of this, there's a circle with a hole in it, and then on the middle is a figure 8 shape, which is the position of the sun for every day of the year.
Wow.
So, and it's a figure 8 because it's that shape, because the sun is not in this perfect orbit around the earth is not in a perfect orbit going around the sun. And so the earth is sometimes fast in its orbit and sometimes slow. So that's why you get that figure 8. But the figure 8 is also a result of the fact that in the summer, the sun is high. So, and in the winter, the sun is low. So you have the changing declination, but at noon standard time, if you record that, you get a figure 8 shape. And so it tells you the day of the year from the sun.
Feels like that would take so much calculation too, just to figure out how to get the sunlight to land perfectly on it. That's so cool.
It takes so when I was in high school, I just loved geometry. So it's really quite it requires a little bit of math and trigonometry and stuff like that. So
yeah, one of the things I love about it is it's so different, like using sunlight and shadows. We have our series, so we talk with a lot of different eco artists, but a lot of them incorporate, some of the like plants and things like that. But sunlight is like, I feel like very unique part of nature too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's the fuel for gardens, it's the thing that causes everything to grow. So, and us too, we need it.
It's true. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to live without the sun. Oh, yes. So actually, we also wanted to ask, I can see that you had written a book, The Great Sundial Cutout Book.
And I'll show it to you.
Right, with Maybelline Jones. Could you tell us about that?
There it is.
Look at that. That's so neat.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's the letters are embossed, and there's the sun right there. Anyway, it's a think and do book, so that you actually get a model made in paper, and you can actually make a sundial with the paper. And so it's a book that you learn about the history of sundials and some astronomy and some of the myths, solar myths, and different cultures, how the different cultures worshipped and used the sun, and how churches were oriented towards the sun, and how they used the sun for the congregation. If you go into some of the Renaissance and older, even pre-Renaissance and churches and so forth, they had solar calendars from the ceiling of the church. They had a line drawn on the floor of the church, so that they from a beam of light they could tell you when to plant something.
Oh, wow.
Tell you. So these are pretty sophisticated. When people didn't have television, they paid attention to nature much more than we do.
Yeah.
And we're part of it. And I think as modern as we are as a civilization, in many ways we have used technology to distance ourselves from nature, and it's one of the reasons why the planet is falling apart. And we think science is going to solve everything, and it doesn't. And and the more that we're connected to, this rely upon more direct connection to and with the environment rather than destroying it, but to working with it and being part of it. It's that's why I think what your work that you're doing at the Conservancy is so important, and to helping the earth heal. That's what we need. That's what I'm doing. That's what you're doing. We're becoming. It's really important work because, as you know, as the planet heats up, I mean, this is an emergency, really.
Yeah,
The
no, I agree.
work that we're doing, and I'm not alone with this. There's a lot of artists, and I guess that's what part of I love about your work is the eco art work that you're doing is about this. It's about artists working in the environment and doing the important work of connecting us to nature in a way that is hopeful and sane and not just using and taking and depleting and poisoning the environment,
Exactly. That's how we feel too. That's why a lot of our eco artists focus on taking things and reusing them and finding things like that. But going back to your point about people appreciating the earth, I agree 100%. I feel like the more connected we are with nature, the more we're integrated and we're actually experiencing it, the more we come to value it and understand its importance. And the further our society gets separated away, the more we spend all of our time inside, then we don't understand the importance of the earth. And that's how people can sometimes not value it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we try to incorporate that into everything we do. We run our education programs to get kids outside more.
That's why I was so impressed by your website and the things you do, which is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it. We're impressed with everything you do too. I wouldn't know how to make any of these. Sundials are very, very impressive.
Yes.
It's a lot of calculation and math. That's
well, one of the interesting things about the sundials my work is that if I just did sundials, I wouldn't be happy because sundials alone are mathematical and very exacting. And that's why my website actually is split. Half the website is about my painting, and the watercolor paintings are loose and fluid and about water, and nature and sunlight, and it's also about sunlight, but in a different form. It's not mathematical, and it's much more organic, and so I need that balance. And I think a lot of people do. I don't think people are just. I think people are unbalanced if they only do one thing they don't mix it up somehow. You know what I mean? Balance is everything. Balance and fit is everything. I really prize that if I'm putting a sundial someplace, that it fits. It's the right scale. It's not too big. It's not too small. It fits within the environment. It's in the materials that it's going to look good and last and be beautiful. And so fits is another important aspect about what a sundial for me has to do, anyways.
Yeah, no, it's like a very holistic approach because it has to meet the requirements of the area too. Yeah. And all of them were so unique based on where they were. I really liked that. Did you have any other questions, Van? Did you want to add anything else?
Yes, I do apologize. I was kicked off of Zoom a little bit beforehand. So, Robert, what would you recommend someone else who's interested in creating eco art projects that combine art and nature?
I would recommend. There's this book. I just pulled it out from my library, and I'm in the book, but it's about it's. I'm going to show it to you here. It's called Sculpting with the Environment, and it's a natural dialogue, and it's edited by an artist named uh, Bailey Oaks,
Mhm.
Baileoakes, and it was made in believe it or not, this book was written in 1990,
Oh,
and
really?
and it's full of artists who are who, and are and were concerned about the environment and made it their mission to make art that addressed the over reliance upon technology and science to think it's going to save all our lives and our planet. And so this book is a way of, I mean, it might be a source for people who are interested in making art that has something to do with um, ecology and using art and ecology to wake people up to reconnecting in a holistic way, as you said, with the environment. So, I mean, I think there's lots of avenues for artists to pursue. I mean, someone might be interested in bees and want to make an art project with bees, or even just they could be interested in water and creating something that brings attention to fresh water and the importance of fresh water. Or, I mean, and so there's lots of ways, and a lot of that depends upon the artist's particular interests and their abilities and ways of whether they teach and show other people how to, what they're doing, and or actually, doing more big public projects or small little garden projects, or or teaching small classrooms or whatever. So I think it really, there's lots of avenues and necessary avenues that need to be established and pursued if I don't know, if we're going to survive. It's as
Yeah.
simple, you know, it's a mess. But I think most artists are hopeful and optimistic, and are willing to go, to work to make it a better place, and not just, it's not always about the big dollars and not,
Yeah. No, I agree. And actually what I was thinking about while you were saying that too is the nice thing about the fact that all artists have different like connections with the earth and have all these different avenues is that this kind of gives them an opportunity to really take this and put it into a tangible form that they can share with other people to like share their inspiration. And so
Yeah.
then the more people that see it, I don't know, maybe it encourages other people to be connected to the earth too and to explore their own version of art.
Right. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that we're close to the end. I know we had one audience question that I wanted to ask you real quick. Rebecca had asked if daylight savings time has any impact on the accuracy of sundials.
Yeah, it just moves. I make sundials, and I often will say, I make them for standard time. And I said, if you want if it's daylight savings time, just add an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, I think most people can accept that. I mean, it doesn't,
Oh yeah.
daylight savings times does not change. I mean, it's pretty consistent. The thing that does change with sundials is the seasonal aspect of the sun. In other words, in the axis of the earth tilts and is tilted so that when it goes around the sun, that's why we have the seasons. Sometimes the rays are hitting the north, towards the north, the top of the northern hemisphere, and sometimes the suns is and on the opposite side of its orbit is in the southern. So that's why we have the seasons, the hot and the cold, right? So, and so you have this seasonal variation of the orbit of the sun around the Earth around the sun. And as I said, the orbit is sometimes fast or sometimes slow. And sometimes so, there's two things in terms of sundials that you have to be aware of, is that there's an equation of time that you need to either add or subtract how many minutes the sun is fast or slow in its orbit to get the exact time.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that you have to, depending on where you are in your time zone, like if you are on in the Eastern Standard Time Zone where we are, the center of the Eastern Standard Time Zone runs from the North Pole to there's a line that runs from the North Pole to the South Pole. It's called a longitude line. It runs from the North Pole to the South Pole through Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is the center of the Eastern Standard Time Zone. So the clocks are set for that moment. Now, if you are in New York, the sun is going to get to you before it reaches Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So, in other words, as the Earth turns. And so you have to know where you are. And so you have to add, I think, let's say, it might be like, it could be 4 minutes of time between New York and Philadelphia. So you have to add 4 minutes let's see, what were you doing? The sun gets there earlier. So your sundial will be showing 4 minutes before it arrives in Philadelphia. In other words, your sundial is going to be fast in New York. So you need these two corrections in order to make your sundial accurate. And that's more important in terms of telling the time than daylight savings time, which is much simpler. And good sundials actually have either a plaque that tells you the correction for the time, or has the longitudinal, the correction for longitude built in, where we can actually correct that.
Oh, really?
So that's more science. And I'm more interested in poetry, but I try to make them scientifically correct.
That's
Great,
perfect. Yeah.
wonderful. Allie, are there any other Facebook questions that people are asking?
Let me check. I can look right now, but one of the things I will add that if anyone watching on Facebook, I know we're streaming live right now, but if you have questions afterwards when you're watching this, if you send them over to us at Tina Creek or comment them on the Facebook, we can send them over to Robert as well, because I know we're reaching our hour limit, so I think we may wrap up.
All right, great. So as Allie mentioned, we are coming up to our hour end. So I do want to thank everyone that has joined for our Facebook Live in our interview meeting with Robert Adzema. And again, thank you, Robert, for joining us and explaining to us all of your work and your sundials.
Yeah, I want to say one thing about sundials that
Sure.
people think they're like quaint and antique and not important because they're old and they don't tell time accurately, but because they don't really know how to adjust them or whatever. But even or correct for them. And for me, the most important thing about sundials is that they connect. If you are engaged with a sundial, and someone puts a sundial in a garden, let's say, they're putting it there because they're creating a special place. And so you know that something's happening. They want you to be aware of this place and it's this moment. And so it's creating a moment in time that is special. And it's a moment in time where the sundial is asking you to connect with it and read the time and not think about the future and not think about the past and to think about the current moment that you're there. And through this little simple interaction of light and shadow, right? It creates a moment of presence. And there's a current word out called mindfulness that is important because what it does is it connects you. If you're mindful, you're connected to where you are, to the people you're with, to that moment, and you're in the present moment, and your life is rich because you're aware of the light, you're aware of the space, you're aware of the garden, you're aware of the flowers, you're aware of whether there's wind in the air or whatever, and the people around you, and you're giving it this intention of attention. And it's very valuable in terms of a way of living. So the sundial is giving you a life lesson in terms of this moment in time and space, and it's really important. And so the sundials are giving us this lesson, and it's a gift, and it's a gift, and connecting us to the star, to our heavens, our cosmos, to nature, and that's why I do it, and I hope others will see it as well.
I think that's really inspiring too, because you're right. It does tie you right into the present moment, into mindfulness, like you're saying. A lot of us are just moving about our day and not even thinking about it, and everything has to align in the moment.
And it really connects us to like an abiotic factor, it connects us with nature and everything, even if it's just about time, as we mentioned before, it's digital, but if we bring more sundials back, more people can be more connected to nature and with the sun even. So thank you for adding that.
There's one picture that you might want to, I'll show. If you look at Brooklyn Children's Museum.
Yes.
Put that on. If you can get that up, that would be good.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
If you enlarge that a little bit, if you can enlarge it, I don't know if you can. That's a picture of the Brooklyn Children's Museum where it's an interactive sundial where the person stands on a central line that has the dates on it, and their shadow, if they stick their hand up, will point to the time. So the person is the gnomon, is the thing that's casting the shadow. And unfortunately, this design doesn't exist because there was bad construction with the roof membrane on the Brooklyn Children's Museum. But this is a glass mosaic sundial that is a very simple, direct, sort of educational way of having a sundial that's on the ground and easily, but it was pretty special for children in gardens and stuff. I've made a couple for a number of gardens around the city. Some landscape architects. MKW is a landscape architects. McKelly, let's see, Mazzelli, Kulik, and Williams. They're landscape architects in Lyndhurst, New Jersey, I think. Anyway,
that's so interactive.
Yeah. So that's a good design for as another approach to sundials, another method. So anyway, I wanted to share that.
I like that the person gets to create the shadow. They get to actively be a part of the sundial.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so neat. Oh, we lost your image for a second. Don't know. Oh, there we go. That's
there we go. Look, my battery's low, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you have any other photos that Van had that you wanted us to show as well?
No, I think that's good. I think, I have a website, my name,
yeah.
robertadzema.com. And I have my paintings on there, and I have the sundials, and I also have an Instagram account. And the Instagram is Robert Adzema Sundials.
Perfect. So let me add that in then. We can put that on the Facebook as well. That way everyone can have access to that. Post that in right now. Perfect. Yeah, that way everyone can find your website too and can follow you on social media.
Terrific. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, thank you again. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. I feel like I learned a lot.
Well, I have to
Yes.
come visit you because I'm so impressed with the work you're doing. So next time I'm down in Bergen County, I'll stop by.
Yes, please. Yeah, give us a call. We can give you a tour of the park.
Perfect. Okay, Van, thank you. Allie,
Mhm.
thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much, Robert.
you. All
Good night.
right. So thank you everybody that is on our live right now watching. If you have any further questions, as Allie mentioned, comment below and we'll forward your questions to Robert as well for him to answer. So again, thank you, Robert, for sharing your story and all your work. Allie, thank you for joining me.
Anytime.
So I will be ending the live. So thank you, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Bye.